Now, that's the method within which Marcuse criticizes even capitalist society. Not with external norms drawn from some utopian situation, but by its own terms, with its own terms. I also think that that's not only a good strategy as a style of critique, but it's utterly fair. I mean, in a way, it's like demanding of yourself that you do what you say, you know, which you want to demand at least of your friends, that they do most of the time what they say they'll do. But it's certainly a good demand to place upon your society, its leaders, and so on. The trouble is that just as I've stated before, we are blocked. We're blocked in a way by an unprecedented structure of what I have called here sort of cynical, skeptical reason. It is just, to me, it's historically unmatched. I've never read or heard of a period like this one, and I've read about many historical periods, but not one in which you can talk to young people the way you can at the college level today and find out that they believe nothing, want nothing, hope nothing, expect nothing, dream nothing, desire nothing. Push them far enough and they'll say, yeah, I got to get a job. Spend a lot of money at Duke. That's not what I'm talking about here. They hope nothing, expect nothing, dream nothing, desire nothing. And it is a fair question to ask whether a society that produces this reaction in its young is worthy of existence at all. It really is. It's worth asking that, whether it's worth being here at all. And my criticism of this society couldn't get more bitter than it is in that case. It couldn't possibly be. Remember, I'm talking about the young I've encountered at Duke. These are privileged youth at an elite Southern school, mostly white, mostly upper middle class to upper class. Now, imagine what the attitudes are like in the streets of D.C. if you're from another race or another social class. We have outlived in the 20th century the responses that Marcuse would have given to this. I still admire, in his book, The Argument Concerning Enlightenment, I still admire his vicious attack on a bureaucracy, both here and in the Soviet Union and elsewhere, and his attack on a world in which money comes before human beings. That, to me, is the sort of one-line essence of the critique of Marx. I mean, of Marx's critique, where money is placed ahead of human needs, where just money is placed ahead of them. Marcuse still tries to defend, as I say, freedom, happiness, creativity. He still believes in the truth. He still believes the human race has a happy destiny. I mean, I think that we have to look back at Marcuse, who at the time we looked at as a vicious radical. I think we have to look back at him as a kind of Norman Vincent Peale of the 60s. I mean, Marcuse wasn't radical at all by the standards of this world into which we have slipped by the late 20th century. No, he really does sound like Norman Vincent Peale at times. It's almost quaint if it wasn't so horrifying. Because his meditation and his theory and his view is about the destiny of the human race on this planet, about whether we will ever learn to make sense or whether we'll just keep making money and madness. It's a real big question. He never was able to answer it. But one of the reasons I wanted to raise it right in the middle of the lectures is I didn't want these lectures to turn into some kind of funky kind of Tony Roberts course in self-development. Like, now I know who I really am kind of crap. Because when we're through, we won't know. I don't know. If I had known who I was, I probably wouldn't have shown up. Now, I mean, you know, this is not, I mean, it's an important part, and it's not a cynical thing to say. But it's an important part of finding out about the self in this part of history, that we don't have all the answers, that we have not even formulated all the questions correctly. In fact, Tony Roberts and people like him are a part of the problem themselves, their banalization. I love it when I hear someone say, I've listened to Tony's tapes, and now I used to be fat and unhappy, and now I'm skinny and happy. Well, it just makes me want to cut someone up with a chainsaw. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, no, you know, that's not why humans think. They think because they have to think. It's a felt necessity. It's the weight of the world, the complexity of it. And you can avoid it, I admit, with drugs, but at some point in your life you have to come across the need to think. Marcuse comes from a period, and it's back in style, in fashion. I have to admit it, the 60s are back in style. Everyone, they probably will be out of style by the time these tapes are out, but people are back listening to Jimi Hendrix, wearing bell-bottoms and tie-dyes. I suppose you've noticed that. Of course, this would have nothing to do with banalization. Well, of course it would. Because anything that's a threat to this system can be banalized. I'll give you two examples in the sphere of politics. The way they turned Jesse Jackson from a serious social actor into sort of a banal caricature of himself in the media. They've banalized a real threat to the system, which was the Rainbow Coalition. A real threat, populist threat to the system, banalized into a joke. It's even sicker to realize this, that if something tragic happened to Jesse Jackson, there'd be a picture of him up next to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King in all our schools 10 years from now. No one doubts it. See? But now, while he's alive, he has to be banalized. It is obviously a form of control. It's social control I'm talking about here. It's not a conspiracy. I mean, it's just something that happens in the process of a society working out its own internal logics in systems of incredible complexity. Banalization is a way to reduce complexity. It's also a systematic way to be an idiot. And I have to say this, many of our complaints about the educational system fall under the critique of Marcuse as well, where we produce student after student in this condition I've described, which is not really despair because it's beneath that level. In other words, they'd have to be more excited to be in despair. They'd have to be like more thrilled to be forlorn. Like they'd have to be in love with something before they could have their heart broken, to make a more simple example out of it. No, it's beneath that level. It's frighteningly beneath it. It cannot be defended. Herbert Marcuse, while he lived, made these arguments, and as I say, looking back on them from this point in history, from this point in time, it's hard not to feel a little nostalgic for them. But I have a feeling that they'll come back, along with tie-dyes, Jimi Hendrix, and who knows. They may even have someone like me tour and denounce the system as the warm-up act for a rock and roll band. I mean, who the hell knows? But that's all I have to say about Marcuse, and I've really enjoyed this little interlude with you, and I hope that we got somewhere in this hour anyway. Thank you very much.